Welcome to the Phoenix Network. This is Gene Kernan. I'm your host. I'm the sponsor with Local Motive Marketing. You know, the whole purpose of the Phoenix Network was to provide local business owners with the ability to promote their business to locals, to promote local spending, primarily, in order to help further our local economy. Now, of course, with what's going on lately, that idea has pretty much bitten the dust at the moment, but the Phoenix Network lives on. Sponsored by Local Motive Marketing, which provides marketing technology to local businesses as you know through branded Wi-Fi, geofencing with proximity beacons, with gamified mobile coupons, and more. And that, of course, has been biting the dust lately because nobody's even brave enough to want to actually promote their business because we're all locked down at the moment. Now, I'm going to try to do some things here that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull off, but I'm going to see if I can. First, I'm going to see if I can't share my screen. And I'm not sure that's working yet at the moment. But we're going to see if we can't go to the AZDHS website. And apparently that's not working all that well. So be that as it may, I'll just have to tell you about what's on the AZDHS website. This is Arizona Department of Health Services.gov, actually .gov/preparedness epidemiology. Just go to AZDHS.gov, you'll find it. On the AZDHS website, it has rate of fatalities per 100,000 population of 45.71 fatalities per 100,000 population. That is rather stunning. 45 sounds like that's a lot of deaths, but it's per 100,000. So if you divide 45.71, get your calculator out, divide 45.71 by 100,000, you'll find that that's 45 100ths of 1%. Think about that for a minute. 45 100ths of 1%. And yet for that, the governor has chosen to not only have this lockdown, but to continue this lockdown, to extend this lockdown, especially as it relates to bars and gyms. Why? What's in it for him? Well, there are stories about him being on the board and an investor in TGen, which is the company making the tests. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. I just know that with 45 deaths per 100,000 population, 45.71 per 100,000 population, it seems to me that the panic is somewhere other than in the issue of the virus itself. It's clearly not as deadly as it has been. And for part of that, I can go to the next website, which is basically that the COVID-19 death rate is 75% lower in states that did not lock down. Now, this is published by the Wall Street Journal. And essentially what it says here is a lead editorial in the Wall Street Journal reveals that the per capita death rate for the coronavirus is 75% lower in states that did not panic into lockdown. So 75% lower. If we divide 45.71 by 4 and then multiply by 3, we're basically looking at less than 12%, less than 12, 11 point something per 100,000 is what might have been possible had we never locked down at all. Now that's pretty profound. It's pretty profound for a number of reasons. But the fact is that this has been hyped up from the very beginning. Personally, I don't think it's about a virus at all. I tend to think it's about politics. I think it's more about keeping us all panicked and keeping us afraid because fear is the number one motivator. And right now, a lot of small businesses, I believe, are not taking advantage of the opportunity to be on the Phoenix Network, for example, which I'm offering to them for free at this point while this goes on. And yet, I've got no takers. I've got no takers on any other kind of marketing at the moment. I can only perceive, I can only surmise that that's because everybody's just scared out of their mind with whether or not they're going to get anything out of it. And I don't promise, unlike a lot of marketers, I don't promise that you're going to get anything out of it. If you do, then we can talk about whether or not you want to continue. But until then, I'm thankfully blessed enough to be able to carry on both the Phoenix Network and locomotive marketing without any money coming in. I'm blessed that way. Here's the thing. Part of what's behind this, in my estimation, is that this is really about, like I said, keeping people panicked. And in that vein, another of the websites that I wanted to share with you today on this broadcast, which I apparently can't do, I'll have to work that out with the platform, is a website that basically, this is from USA Today. Not one of my favorite places, but the headline, and this is from, let's see, May 21st. FDA investigates lab as tens of thousands of COVID-19 test results in Florida are questioned. It turns out that there's a Texas laboratory that a Florida hospital chain dropped last week because of delayed and unreliable COVID-19 test results. Advent Health, which has 45 hospitals in 9 states, terminated its Florida contract with Microgen DX due to concerns about the validity of some of the 60,000 tests Microgen had processed for the system because the lab left them at room temperature for days. We've got FDA now investigating this lab for not doing the tests correctly, not preserving it. Now, this is all at the same time that we're hearing that this is from Channel 7 in Boston. Again, major news is not my favorite anymore. Hasn't been for a long time. Coronavirus is getting weaker, could disappear without a vaccine, according to this doctor. This doctor, let's see if I can find his name. Professor Matteo Bassetti, head of infectious diseases clinic at Policlinico San Martino Hospital in Italy, told the UK Telegraph, it was like an aggressive tiger in March and April, but now it's like a wild cat. Even elderly patients, aged 80 and 90, are now sitting up in bed and they are breathing without help. The same patients would have died 2 or 3 days before. Now, remember, I told you about the FDA investigating Microgen. It also turns out that CDC, this is from Town Hall, it was actually reported from the Federal Election Commission, shows that since 2005, more than 550 CDC employees donated more than $285,000 to the Democratic Party and to their candidates. The number one recipient for donations was Act Blue. You may have heard about Act Blue recently because they're the ones that the donations for Black Lives Matter are going to, but they're also the main channel for the Democratic Party. In fact, only 5 donations, only 5 contributions were sent to the Republican Political Action Committee or a candidate. That's pretty astounding. Now, we've been wondering about the CDC numbers for a while. They keep adjusting how they're doing things. But let's just take for a moment that going back to the virus, if the FDA is warning about this lab, they're investigating this lab, if there's already been a report that the death rate is 75% lower in states that didn't lock down, imagine what that tells us. That tells us that, first of all, locking down wasn't the right idea, which many people argued against in the beginning. Closing up businesses, driving small business owners out of business, making it more difficult for them to ever be able to regain their business, be able to restart their business. This is simply astounding. And it's all because everybody is in panic mode. A panic mode that I believe is intentional. I truly believe that. I don't doubt the reality of the virus itself. It exists. People have died from it. But 98% of the people that have died have been elderly. All have had comorbidities, obesity, respiratory problems, pre-existing, heart problems, etc. And yet, out of all that that we know, out of the fact that we know that the labs are misreporting, there are labs in Florida, and I couldn't find the website in time to get on this particular webcast here. There are labs in Florida that they were reporting a 98% positive rate. And when the hospital was called by a local channel, Channel 35, I believe in Orlando, to follow up on it, they said, no, our positive rate is 9.4 or 9.6. But the numbers reported to CDC by the lab were 98 plus. That's profound, because the death rate from this Wall Street Journal article, the 75% lower, that's based on the numbers as they were delivered to CDC. If 98% of those were false positives, or only reporting positives, not reporting negatives, if that's all that they were reporting, those numbers have never, not one day, been reliable to begin with. Clearly, we need to restructure the way things are done with CDC. We need to restructure the way things are done with AZDHS. But if, as the website says, this other one says, if 98% of those tests were misreported, if that number was misreported, if what we end up coming up with here is that the CDC that's been reporting those numbers, and by the way, according to the labs, that's what they asked for. They asked for positive results. Well, if you're only reporting positive results, why didn't they hit 100%? If you're not reporting the negative results, why didn't they hit 100%? The bottom line is, we don't know. What we do know is that the numbers aren't reliable, but that means that that 75% that Wall Street Journal is talking about could be considerably lower. This is why there's a group of Arizona doctors, let me find it here, that is suing. An Arizona doctor group. This was in the Daily Courier, and it was published just a couple days ago. It was originally published June 8th. Okay. A Tucson-based national organization of doctors has sued the Federal Department of Health and Human Services for putting roadblocks in the path of physicians who want to prescribe hydroxychloroquine. CDC works under HHS, the Centers for Disease Control, which I always found to be a curious name. They are under Health and Human Services. If the vast majority of the employees of CDC are donors to the Democratic campaign. It smacks of awfully political for these people to be reporting these mistaken numbers. On top of that, CDC all along has been providing this fatality rate for what they refer to as PIC, P-I-C. You can find this on the CDC website. Just go to cdc.gov. Excuse me. By the way, I don't have COVID. I'm a smoker. Have been for a long time. I think it protects me. Bottom line is that if CDC is reporting these numbers the way they are, then 98% of, got even more than that, only 5 since 2005 donations have gone to the INC or to a Republican candidate. And I'm not Republican, by the way. Compared to the rest of them, $285,000, I believe it was. That smacks of politics. And this is on top of Ducey not only extending this lockdown, but from there, it's about Ducey restricting hydroxychloroquine. It works. It's known across the world that it works. Trump has been using it for months, or started using it months ago when he first announced it. He's not dead yet. It works. I mean, the man's in his 70s. He's in one of those special risk groups, and yet he's not dead. The studies from the Lancet and elsewhere that said it could cause all these other heart problems have been debunked. They've been unpublished. There's more going on here than a virus. More and more, it sounds like it's political. And we have to do something about this. Now, I've got to take a break for a second because I've got to plug my phone in and make sure that it doesn't die as we carry on. So let me do that. All right, there we go. So now that I'm back in and still running good, the bottom line here, folks, is that until we decide as business owners until we decide as citizens to demand that we make our own decisions. I haven't worn a mask at all throughout this whole thing. I haven't hidden. I haven't stopped going anywhere I was going. Not only have I not gotten anything, but nobody that I know nobody that I've done business with has been reported to me as having contracted COVID. So what's happening here? The bottom line is that you and I, the only way we're going to get our rights back, to open our businesses, to do what it is we do to make a living. The only way we're going to get our rights back as citizens, to be able to go where we want to go, buy what we want to buy, and not have to wear a mask, not have to hide, not have to subject ourselves to the known psychological issues that are involved with wearing masks. Until we do that, this is going to go on. This is going to go on and on and on. The bottom line is we've got what's supposed to be a Republican governor who seems completely aligned with the Democratic mayor of Phoenix, who seems to be completely aligned with the entire keep everybody scared attitude. And we have to not put up with it. Because at this point, as was so eloquently pointed out in a video that I watched this morning, it took 4 months. 4 months for the entire American population to become convinced that we can't live our lives without government control. That we can't run our businesses without government control. That we can't do anything without government control. And we simply can't have that. We simply can't. The bottom line is, I'm old enough to make a decision for myself. You're old enough to make a decision for yourself. Any business that wants to open should be fully open. If people want to wear a mask, fine. If the mask works, got no problem with it. But how does the mask work? There have been studies on that too, that say the mask, especially the cloth mask, won't stop anything. They don't stop anything. There have been some rather colorful analogies to that, or rather, shall we say, malodorous to that. But the bottom line is that we've got people that are so panicked that they're literally, in some cases, attacking those who aren't wearing masks for not wearing masks. We got the announcement the other day that Walmart and Costco were going to refuse to service people who didn't wear masks. Walmart's already backed off of that. And what, by the way, Walmart is Chinese owned, you know, so go figure. Costco will no doubt back off of that. We don't have to wear masks. In fact, that's where it gets down to the authority on whether or not DC can even require wearing masks. Now, let's go into the Arizona Constitution here for a minute. I wish that I could show this to you. I wish I could put this on screen. Okay? But because I can't, I'll have to read it to you. You can go find the Arizona Constitution. Just look up Arizona Constitution in Google. It will take you to the legislature's website where you can pull down the Arizona Constitution. Article 2, Declaration of Rights, Section 2. The heading is Political Power, semicolon, Purpose of Government. All political power is inherent in the people, and governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and are established to protect and maintain individual rights. To protect and maintain individual rights. Now, let's go to under the executive department. This is Article 5. And this is Section 4. Governor, powers and duties, special sessions of legislature, message and recommendations. The governor shall transact all executive business with the officers of the government, civil and military, and may require information in writing from the officers in the executive department upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. He may convene the legislature in extraordinary session. He shall communicate by message to the legislature at every session the condition of the state, and recommend such matters as he shall deem expedient. Now, if we go down here, again, I believe it's to Section 25. No, that gets into it. So let's go into the powers that the governor's claiming. Before we do that, we'll go into what the definitions are. In this chapter, emergency management means the preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation activities necessary to respond to and recover from disasters, emergencies, or contingencies. Emergency itself is not actually defined in here. Okay? Now, as we go through this, we find that there is no actual emergency power conveyed in the Arizona Constitution. And although State of emergency is defined, not emergency itself, but state of emergency, means the duly proclaimed existence of conditions of disaster or extreme peril to the safety of persons or property within the state caused by air pollution, fire, flood or floodwater, storm, epidemic, riot, earthquake, or other causes, except those resulting in a state of war emergency. State of war emergency. Now, again, it does specify pandemic or epidemic, right? But once again, the fatality rate, as reported by the Arizona Department of Health Services on their website, and this is today's number, Saturday, July 25th, 2020, this is today's number that they reported, 45.71 per 100,000 population. Basically, even if you round it up, it's 46 out of 100,000 people. That's the death rate. So even if he has the power under 26-301 in paragraph 15, it's important to remember that paragraph number. Bottom line is, do we really have an epidemic? Now, 26-303 is where he's been claiming this authority. Okay. 26-303 starts out in subsection A. This is emergency powers of governor, termination, authorization for adjutant general, etc. Limitation. Subsection A, during a state of war emergency. State of war. We're not in a state of war. And there's all sorts of things that the governor can do, including commandeer and utilize any property. But if we go down here, subsection B, during a state of war emergency, the governor shall have complete authority over all agencies of the state and shall exercise all police power vested in the state by the Constitution and laws. Remember, we're going by the Constitution and laws. The power is granted to the governor by this chapter with respect to state of war emergency shall terminate if the legislature is not in session and the governor, within 24 hours after the beginning of such state of war emergency, has not issued a call for an immediate special session. Remember the Constitution? He has the power under the executive powers, Section 4, Article 5, Section 4, to call the legislature into special session. We're not in a state of war emergency, and we know that because he hasn't called the legislature into a special session. E, during a state of emergency, the governor shall have complete authority over all agencies of the state government and the right to exercise within the area designated all police power vested in the state by the Constitution and laws. Here's where it gets interesting. When you get down to subsection E, during a state of emergency, remember subsection A started out with during a state of war emergency. Subsection B was during a state of war emergency. Subsection C related to state of war emergency. D is questionable, but I think this supports my argument because subsection E is where it specifies during a state of emergency, not war, state of emergency. The governor shall have complete authority over all agencies of the state government and the right to exercise within the area designated all police power designated in the state by the Constitution and laws of this state in order to effectuate the purposes of this chapter. Section 2, subsection 2. The governor may direct all agencies of the state government to utilize and employ state personnel, equipment, and facilities. The powers granted by the governor with respect to the state of emergency shall terminate when the state of emergency has been terminated by the governor, by proclamation, or by concurrent resolution of the legislature. Subsection G. No provision of this chapter may limit, modify, or abridge the powers vested in the governor under the Constitution or laws of this state. There is nothing anywhere throughout 303, ARS 26-303, nothing in ARS 26-301, And nothing in Article 5, Section 4 of the Constitution that gives the governor authority over any private business. And certainly nothing that gives him power to declare that you and I as citizens have to wear a mask, that we can't go anywhere, that we have to stay locked down. But the only way that we're going to put an end to this is if we put an end to it. It's just that simple, folks. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that we want to take it to the extremes that it's been taken to in other cities and other states by certain other factions. But we're not a faction. We're the people, in whom, under Article 2, Section 2 of the Arizona Constitution, all political power is inherent. We, the people, are from whom the just powers are derived. It's with our consent. As long as we consent to keep putting up with this, it's going to go on. That's just the fact of the matter, folks. Now, because I don't have any businesses that want to share time today, bottom line is that I don't have much else to say. I can go over and over and over and all this again, but I don't think that's necessary. The bottom line is that I don't think the governor has the power. I think there need to be more lawsuits against the governor, as well as against the CDC, as well as against HHS. I think we've got to hold all of their feet collectively and individually to the fire. I think we've got to remind them just who the hell is in charge. I'm kind of like that sometimes. I'm Gene Kernan. I am the host and producer of the Phoenix Network. I run locomotive marketing, both of which are dedicated to promoting local spending by locals primarily at local business using the latest in modern technology. I thank you. I thank you for being here. I thank you for watching. If you haven't been here for the time, and if you're watching it later on, I'm still glad you got here. If anybody would like to help me try to carry this on while things are going on, in the chat, there's a link to a PayPal where you can make a $5 donation. It's listed as a subscription because I just created one of the ones that I just modified one of the links that I used to have. So it's now called subscription. You can subscribe to this channel and know what I'm going to be doing next and what I'm going to be doing. But if you'd like to, that's fine. If not, I'm going to keep carrying on anyway because I'm blessed enough to be able to. God bless you. God keep you. And let's get through this and over this. Let's get through the election. It's not going to end well, but let's get through that at least. Have a good one.